Chapter 449. Within the palace of the Xianxia kingdom, the king of the Xianxia kingdom was seated at a table in a dazzling hall with a smile on his face as he conversed with two people across from him. One of them was young and the other was old. Both of them wore luxurious robes and exuded a unique aura that came naturally from being in a high position for a long time. Their mannerisms were natural and magnanimous. These two people were a prime minister and a prince of the heavenly eagle kingdom. They had departed from the kingdom of Xianxia when the war in the kingdom of Xianxia had just ended. After traveling through the night, they had finally arrived at the palace of the kingdom of Xianxia to meet the king of the kingdom of Xianxia. The king of the kingdom of Xianxia had been very busy these past 2 days. He had only received the envoys from the 4 kingdoms yesterday afternoon. There were 2 main reasons for the envoys' visit. The first was to inquire about the relationship between the Qin Empire and the kingdom of Xianxia, as well as to meet the imperial advisor of the Qin Empire. The second reason was to discuss the compensation for the kingdom of Xianxia. However, the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire had already left, so the envoys naturally didn't get to meet the imperial advisors of the Qin Empire. However, the king of the kingdom of Xianxia had purposely divulged some important information to them. The reason the imperial advisors of the Qin Empire had come to the kingdom of Xianxia's aid was actually because they were under the orders of an imperial protector of the Qin Empire. The identity of the imperial protector of the Qin Empire had frightened the envoys so much that cold sweat broke out on their foreheads. They were all of high status in their respective kingdoms, so they naturally understood what the identity of the imperial protector represented. Due to the deterrence of the identity of the imperial protector of the Qin Empire, the subsequent negotiations went smoothly. The 4 kingdoms compensated the kingdom of Xianxia with a sizable sum of money and a large number of magic cores. The Anles kingdom, the Blue Wind kingdom, and the Hidden Dragon kingdom had already compensated the kingdom of Xianxia with more than 50 million purple coins. With this amount of compensation, the Xianxia kingdom would be able to quickly recover from the war that had just taken place in the Xianxia kingdom. However, the Pingyang kingdom's compensation was the least out of all the other kingdoms, only a mere 1 million purple gold coins. The ambassador from the Pingyang kingdom had a sullen expression as he explained the situation to the Xianxia kingdom's king. The treasury of the Pingyang kingdom had been completely ransacked by a mysterious expert. Everything of value had been taken away. The negotiations between the 5 kingdoms went smoothly and ended in just 2 hours. Then, the king of the kingdom of Xianxia issued an order to release the captured king of the Pingyang kingdom. Due to the special status of the king of the Pingyang kingdom, he was not executed. Instead, he was locked up in the prison of the northern fortress and his life was not in danger. After dealing with the matter of compensation from the 4 kingdoms, the king hadn't stopped to rest. Over the past 2 days, there had been countless envoys from the other kingdoms coming to visit him, making him very busy. But now, with the identity of the 2 people sitting in front of him, even the king of the Xianxia kingdom had to take them seriously and carefully receive them. The kingdom of Heavenly Eagle wasn't a kingdom that the kingdom of Xianxia could afford to offend. The prime minister of the Heavenly Eagle kingdom was the one conversing with the king of the kingdom of Xianxia. The prince sitting at the side listened quietly and didn't interrupt. The prime minister of the Heavenly Eagle kingdom was beating around the bush. He was trying to probe the relationship between the kingdom of Xianxia and the Qin Empire, as well as the reason why the Qin Empire suddenly assisted the kingdom of Xianxia in fending off the allied forces of the 4 kingdoms. With regards to this topic, the king of the kingdom of Xianxia had already thought of an excuse that would be beneficial to the kingdom of Xianxia. He also emphasized the identity of the imperial protector of the Qin Empire. Right now, the relationship between the kingdom of Xianxia and the Qin Empire was still unclear. He didn't want to offend the kingdom of Heavenly Eagle. When they heard that the order to assist the kingdom of Xianxia was given by the Qin Empire's imperial protector, the prime minister and prince of the Heavenly Eagle kingdom immediately became serious. Then, the prime minister smiled and exchanged a few pleasantries with the king before revealing the second purpose of their visit. Your Majesty, I've heard that your Princess Glan is already 20 years old and has yet to marry. Our king of the Heavenly Eagle kingdom hopes that our 2 kingdoms can be allies for generations to come. Thus, this old subject is here to propose marriage. I hope that your majesty can betroth the Princess Glan to the second prince of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom. The Prime Minister said amiably with a friendly smile on his face. Hearing this, the king of the kingdom of Jessen's expression changed slightly. He revealed a slightly troubled expression. This was because he had already decided to betroth the Princess Glan to the fourth young master of the Changyang Prefecture, Changyang Shoten. He had hoped to rope in this talented individual who was praised by even his imperial uncle. If something had happened to Changyang Shoten in the past few years, then the marriage would have been annulled. The king of the kingdom of Jessen would have been able to arrange another marriage for the Princess Glan. However, he had already received news that Changyang Shoten had returned 2 days ago. As a result, the marriage would have to be carried out according to the previous agreement. He could not break the agreement because the current Changyang prefecture was no longer the same as before. With Changyang Shoten's strength exposed, the status of Changyang prefecture in the kingdom of Jessen had risen as well. Even the imperial family did not dare to offend them. The most important reason was that the king of the kingdom of Jessen had suspected more than once that the Qin Empire was assisting the kingdom of Jessen because of Changyang prefecture. Only the Changyang ancestor, who had been missing for several decades, had this possibility. As a result, the king of the kingdom of Jessen did not dare to neglect Changyang prefecture at all. After a moment of silence, the Jessen kingdom's king said, "Prime Minister Che, or is this king's only daughter? At the same time, she is also this king's most beloved daughter. Allow me to discuss this with her and see what she thinks." "That's not a problem. Your Majesty is a good father. I admire you," Prime Minister Che chuckled without showing any displeasure. The prince of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom beside him did not show any displeasure either. He remained as calm as before. After that, the two sides exchanged a few pleasantries before the two envoys from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom left to rest. After the two left, the king of the Jessen Kingdom let out a long sigh and closed his eyes, rubbing his temples as if he had a headache. The king of the kingdom of Jessen was very interested in the marriage that the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom had proposed. If he could befriend the kingdom of Jessen, the kingdom of Jessen would definitely benefit greatly. It would play an extremely important role in the development of the kingdom of Jessen. If the Qin Empire has nothing to do with the Changyang ancestor, what should I do? Should I take the risk of offending the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom and betroth you, or to Changyang Shoten according to our previous agreement, or should I offend the Changyang prefecture and the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom? The king softly murmured. With his position, he had to put the development of the kingdom of Jessen first. Although he loved his daughter dearly, there were some decisions that were not up to him. Although he knew that the fourth young master of the Changyang prefecture, Changyang Shoten, possessed extraordinary talent, he believed that Changyang Shoten would take a long time to truly mature. It would take at least a few decades, and at most a century. It was very difficult for him to wait any longer. As for the Qin Empire, the king did not know why the Qin Empire was helping him. Perhaps it was because a senior from the kingdom of Jessen had some connection with the imperial protector of the Qin Empire. If they were willing to help him once, who could guarantee that they would help him a second time? He had to find a way out for the kingdom of Jessen. At the top of the mountain, the wind whistled through the sky, producing an ear-piercing shriek that sounded like the wailing of ghosts. 20 kilometers away from the Huayan sect's encampment, Xianxia stood in the air in luxurious white robes, coldly staring at the three people before him. "No wonder you're so arrogant. So you're already a Heaven Saint Master." Xia stared at Xianxia with an unsightly expression. Her eyes were filled with jealousy. Xianxia did not even glance at Xia. Xia had only just become a Heaven Saint Master, and her strength had not yet stabilized. Even among the first cycle Heaven Saint Masters, she was at the bottom. Xianxia expressionlessly stared at the two great elders. He indifferently said, "Do it. Don't blame me for not warning you. If you don't use your full strength, you'll lose very miserably." The two great elders did not become angry. Instead, their faces became serious. From the speed and density of the wind elemental energy in Xianxin's hands, they could tell that Xianxin's control over the energy of the world was greater than theirs. The two great elders looked at each other, understanding each other's thoughts with a single glance. They both took out their saint weapons at the same time. Both were swords of the same shape, and with a shake of their hands, they shot out two powerful sword chi at Jianshan. Xia did not dare fall behind. A huge sword appeared in her hand, and she actually quickly charged at Jianshan. Xia firmly believed that if he and the two great elders attacked together, Jianshan would definitely not be able to stop them. After all, his age was there for all to see. Jianshan's hands grabbed at the air, and the fire elemental energy in the surroundings condensed at an unbelievable speed. In an instant, it condensed into 3 fire elemental swords that emitted a monstrous wave of heat. They turned into red streaks of light that shot toward the 3 great elders. Boom! A violent explosion rang out in the sky. Waves of fire shot out in all directions, turning the sky red. The violent energy waves completely devoured the surrounding clouds, and a small patch of blue appeared in the vast white sky. The 2 great elders' sword chi were scattered, and Xia's figure was obstructed. Saint force surged out of her body, forming an energy barrier around her to block the surrounding waves of fire. Jianshan's figure moved, and under the guidance of the wind elemental energy, he quickly approached Xia. His right hand formed a palm, and the fire elemental energy in the surroundings rapidly condensed again, condensing into a powerful ball of elemental energy in front of his palm. You have no right to participate in a battle like this. Piss off, Jianshan coldly said, and then his palm shot out like lightning. The moment it approached Xia's chest, the yuan qi condensed in front of his palm suddenly erupted, breaking through Xia's defenses with an unstoppable force and viciously striking Xia's chest. Xia immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. His face instantly paled, and he lost control of his body. Like a kite with its string cut, he fell from the sky. Chapter 450. The expressions of the 2 great elders changed when they saw that Xia had been defeated in a single clash. Their opinion of Jianshan's strength increased once again. I never thought that he would possess strength that is no weaker than mine at such a young age. This is unbelievable, the 2 great elders thought to themselves. The 2 great elders thought at the same time. However, their hands did not stop moving at all. The 2 of them quickly charged toward Jianshan and swung their saint weapons at Jianshan with powerful pulses of energy, preventing him from harming Xia any further. Jianshan's eyes suddenly became purplish-green. Countless trees in the forest below exploded, filling the air with wood shavings. They shot toward the 2 great elders like moths to a flame, completely enveloping the 2 great elders under their shocked gazes. At this moment, Xia had also stabilized his falling body. He once again condensed the energy of the world to keep himself afloat in the air. His face had already become extremely gloomy, and his gaze towards Jianshan was filled with coldness. His mind was still constantly replaying what Jianshan had said earlier. You don't have the right to participate in a battle like this. Piss off. At this moment, Xia felt deeply humiliated. The disdain in Jianshan's voice was just so obvious. This was a heavy blow to Xia, who had just become a Heaven Saint Master and had stepped into the ranks of the peak experts of the continent. He had been defeated in just a single round. Moreover, he had been defeated by a young man who was not even in his 20s. Xianxia Shoten. Xia's eyes were filled with resentment as he stared at Jianshan in the air. He muttered Xianxia Shoten's name through gritted teeth, as if he wanted to engrave the name deeply into his mind. In the air, the 2 great elders did not dare to be careless in the face of the dense rain of wood shavings. Saint force surged out of their bodies, condensing into a barrier around them in a single moment. They could only use this method to block the dense rain of attacks. The dense rain of sawdust struck the 2 great elders, causing the barrier of saint force around them to violently tremble, as if it would shatter at any moment. The 2 great elders' expressions drastically changed. The power of the wood shavings had exceeded their imaginations. Without any hesitation, the 2 of them roared out at the same time. An even more surging saint force surged out of their bodies, forming an even more solid barrier around them. Only after the 2 of them used all their strength to maintain the barrier did they finally stabilize. However, this consumed an extremely large amount of their saint force, so they could not last very long. High Earth Tier Battle Skill, Flame Dazzle. One of the great elders roared out. The fire element in the surroundings rapidly condensing into a huge fireball with a diameter of 2 meters in front of him. It shot toward Xianxia with intense heat. The other great elder used this opportunity to charge out of the encirclement of wood shavings and shot toward Xianxia. He roared out, "Space-shattering slash." As he spoke, the huge sword in his hand shone with a dazzling yellow light. It slashed toward Xianxia with surging energy. Xianxia slowly moved his hands in front of him. With his mind, the wood shavings in the air began to dance in an orderly manner. In the end, they actually condensed into 2 huge swords that radiated with azure and violet sword chi. Both swords were 10 meters long and half a meter wide. Swish! With a flash of purple and green light, 2 giant swords made of grass and wood shot toward the 2 of them with an ear-piercing sound. Boom! One of the huge swords collided with the huge fireball, creating a huge explosion. The fireball exploded and turned into a wave of fire that wreaked havoc in the surroundings. The entire sky turned red, and the thin clouds in the surroundings were completely evaporated by the intense heat. At the same time, the other huge sword collided with the great elder charging toward Xianxia. The 10-meter-long sword was shattered by the great elder's high earth tier battle skill, but the great elder's charging figure was also stopped. The high earth tier battle skill that he had been preparing was also broken. Take another one of my space-shattering slashes. The great elder roared and once again used the same earth tier battle skill to slash at Xianxia. A cold smile appeared on Xianxia's face. If it was a heaven tier battle skill, even a low heaven tier battle skill would be able to injure him. However, an earth tier battle skill would hardly be a threat to him. Bang! Bang! Several large trees suddenly exploded, filling the sky with wood shavings. Along the way, the shavings condensed into a 10-meter-long sword that shot into the sky. Following a huge explosion, the 2 collided once more, blocking the great elder's space-shattering slashes. After using a high-grade Earth-class battle skill twice, both of which had been so easily blocked, the Huayan sect's Grand Elder finally lost his patience. The space-splitting saber slash was already his strongest battle skill. If even that was unable to do anything to his opponent, then there was nothing else he could do. Damn it, let's see how many times you can block my attacks. Space-shattering slashes. The veins on the Grand Elder's forehead throbbed violently. He couldn't even deal with a rising star in his 20s. This made him lose face, and he used the same battle technique for the 3rd time. Junior apprentice brother, I'll help you. Flame God Sword Art, 7th style. The other great elder charged at Xianxia, holding a fiery red sword. The 2 of them attacked Xianxia from both sides. It's time to end this, Xianxia murmured. The violet and azure light in his eyes gradually faded away as a layer of dense, almost tangible sword chi slowly shot out from his right hand. Xianxia charged towards one of them with the origin energy of the sword spirits in his hand. The origin energy of the sword spirits left behind a dazzling streak of light in the air as it swept over with lightning-like speed, colliding with the saint weapon of the great elder who had used the space-splitting slash. Ding! With a light sound, the violet and azure sword chi's origin energy cut through the great elder's saint weapon like tofu. The great elder immediately spat out a mouthful of blood and quickly retreated in horror. His face was full of shock. At this moment, the other great elder also approached Xianxia, the yellow sword in his hand chopping down with great force. Xianxia swung the origin energy of the sword spirits to meet the great elder's attack without any fear. When the 2 collided, the great elder's face changed greatly. He spat out a mouthful of blood, his body rapidly retreating as if he had been heavily injured. How is this possible? You actually destroyed my saint weapon. The other great elder involuntarily cried out in shock, his face filled with disbelief. Xianxia didn't let the 2 of them go. Wrapped in wind elemental energy, he quickly chased after one of them. The violet and azure sword spirit's origin energy chopped down once again, forcing the great elder to raise his saint weapon to block. Ding! With a light sound, another 2-finger-sized gap appeared in the great elder's saint weapon. With his saint weapon damaged one after another, His injuries became even more severe. He spat out 3 mouthfuls of blood, his face as pale as a sheet of paper. At this moment, the 2 great elders fully understood the power of the violet and azure sword spirit's origin energy. Seeing that Xianxia still wanted to continue his attacks, the other great elder's face changed greatly. He hurriedly yelled, "Chang Shoten, stop." Xianxia stopped. His entire body was wrapped in a layer of dense wind elemental energy. His heroic figure stood between the heavens and earth. The origin energy of the violet and azure sword spirits in his right hand fluctuated, making him seem like a mighty god of war. Xianxia emotionlessly looked at the great elder who had spoken, but he didn't say anything. The great elder looked at the gap in his saint weapon before looking at the other great elder who was even more heavily injured. He could not help but let out a long sigh. After hesitating for a very long time, he finally unwillingly said, "We admit defeat." After he finished speaking, the Supreme Elder seemed to have aged a lot, and his expression became somewhat dispirited. The other great elder stabilized himself in the air. His face had also become rather dazed. He did not wipe away the blood at the corner of his mouth, allowing the blood to drip onto his clothes. His eyes were empty. No matter who it was, this result was very difficult to accept. 2 veteran Heaven Saint Masters had actually been defeated by a junior. The most difficult thing to accept was that this junior was only in his 20s. Sigh, I'm old. I can't keep using it. Changyang Shoten, you've won. Both of us have been defeated by you. One of the great elders sighed, his face very dispirited. At this moment, Saya also flew up from below. She looked at the 2 great elders in disbelief as her heart churned. Xianxia withdrew the origin energy of the violet and azure sword spirits. Crossing his arms, he said, "Elders, let's go back and deal with this matter. Now that it's settled, I should return as well." The 2 great elders sighed again and nodded. Without saying anything else, they turned around and flew back to the Huayan sect's encampment. At this moment, all the disciples of the Huayan sect had put down what they were doing and gathered in front of the sect. They looked at the distant sky and discussed spiritedly. The entire mountain was buzzing with activity. When the 3 great elders and Xianxia landed in front of the sect, the originally chattering disciples immediately quieted down. Although there were over 1,000 people gathered in such a large place, it was strangely quiet. However, when they saw the condition of the 4 of them, all the disciples were astonished. Their faces were full of disbelief. Of the 4, only Xianxia was in good condition. He did not seem to have changed at all. As for the 2 great elders and the 3 Heaven Saint Masters, their faces were pale. Traces of blood could be seen at the corner of their mouths. The 2 great elders' dispirited expressions could be clearly seen by anyone with some eyesight. Chapter 451. Seeing this scene, Cheng Fei's originally confident expression changed. He suddenly had a thought that he did not even dare to think about. Cheng Fei quickly walked up to the 2 Grand Elders and nervously asked, "Grand Elders, what is the result?" Cheng Fei had already guessed the answer from the Grand Elders' expressions, but he did not dare to believe it. One of the Grand Elders sighed and guiltily looked at Cheng Fei. After a long silence, he finally said, "Cheng Fei, from today onwards, you are no longer the sect master of the Huayan sect." The Grand Elder's words were extremely heavy, and his face was filled with helplessness. The Huayan sect had stood in the kingdom of Jessan for several hundred years and was known as the #1 sect in the kingdom of Jessan. In the past, they were only slightly weaker than the imperial family, but now that they had 3 Heaven Saint Masters, they were even stronger than the imperial family. Yet, with such strength, they had actually been forced to resign in front of all the disciples of the Huayan sect. To the Huayan sect, this was definitely a humiliation that could never be washed away. Ever since the Huayan sect had been established, it had experienced countless storms. What kind of storms had it not seen before? But it had never been in such a miserable state like today, especially when the opponent was a young man in his 20s. This was something that no one in the Huayan sect could accept. Cheng Fei's face instantly paled, and he was completely dumbfounded. His face was filled with disbelief. 2 Grand Elders and 3 Heaven Saint Masters had actually been defeated by the 4th young master of the Changyang Prefecture, Changyang Shoten. No, how is this possible? This is impossible. Cheng Fei was at a loss. He truly found it difficult to accept this fact. This was because he knew that Changyang Shoten was even younger than his son, Cheng Mingxiang. Moreover, he had only condensed a saint weapon and become a saint 6 years ago. But now, in just a few short years, this little saint had leaped over the Dragon Gate and become a Heaven Saint Master. Moreover, he had defeated 3 Heaven Saint Masters without being injured at all. This was just too shocking. Cheng Fei even began to suspect that the Supreme Elder and Sia's trio were acting together. All of the Huayan sect's disciples were stupefied. Many of their mouths were wide open as they stared at the main characters in disbelief. Even ordinary disciples like them were unable to accept this result. Alas! One of the Grand Elders raised his head and sighed. His expression was dispirited, and he seemed to have aged greatly. He said in a low voice, "Changyang Shoten, you should be satisfied now, right? The matters of the past have been written off. I hope our Huayan sect and Changyang Prefecture can still maintain the friendship of the past." After this battle, the 2 Supreme Elders had a clear understanding of Jianshan's strength. Jianshan's unprecedented talent and unparalleled battle prowess had already caused them to feel a deep sense of fear. In the future, they had every reason to believe that Jianshan would definitely be able to become a saint ruler. Jianshan stood proudly with his arms crossed. He looked at the gloomy Xia and said, "Supreme Elders, you seem to have forgotten one thing. There is still an arm that hasn't been removed." The 2 Supreme Elders' expressions changed. Xia was already a Heaven Saint Master, and this was an extremely important asset to the Huayan sect. They definitely did not wish for Xia to be injured in the slightest. If his right arm was cut off, Xia's strength would be greatly reduced. Even if he was a Heaven Saint Master, he would still be in existence at the bottom, unable to use his full strength. Changyang Shoten, Changyang Prefecture and our Huayan sect have already been friends for several hundred years. I hope you can be lenient. Although Xia was in the wrong yesterday, it did not lead to a disaster. Please let him go. One of the Supreme Elders gave in and used a pleading tone. Jianshan was just too strong. The 2 of them had already lost their previous might. "No!" Jianshan said without any hesitation. A cold light flickered in his eyes as he said, "You should rejoice that yesterday's matter did not lead to a disaster. Otherwise, even if your Huayan sect was the founding hero of the Huayan sect, I definitely would not have held back. I will definitely take Xia's arm. If you don't do it, then I'll do it myself. At that time, it won't be so easy. I can't guarantee that I'll be able to keep his life." The 2 Supreme Elders' expressions became extremely unsightly. They dilly-dallied for a long time, but still did not do it. They really could not bear to see the Huayan sect lose a peak expert. As for Jianshan, he was also someone they did not dare to offend. They were afraid that they would vent their anger on Jianshan and cause the Huayan sect to suffer even greater losses. Suddenly, Xia shouted, "Fine. Changyang Shoten, you want my right arm, right? I'll give it to you." As he said that, Xia's left hand formed a palm. Saint force surged out of his body, and he directly chopped at his right arm. Blood filled the air as Xia's entire right arm was chopped off. The intense pain caused Xia's facial muscles to twist. He resisted the urge to make the slightest sound. "Changyang Shoten, is this enough?" Xia's eyes were bloodshot as he glared at Jianshan with hatred. A cold smile appeared on Jianshan's face. "Xia, I won't ask about what happened in the past. But in the future, you'd best know your place. If you dare do anything harmful to my Changyang Prefecture, I'll make you regret it. I hope you won't implicate the Huayan sect." Xia tightly clenched his teeth, not making a sound. He did not have the strength to speak. At this moment, Xia suddenly felt that this scene was extremely similar to what had happened in Changyang Prefecture yesterday. He was the Jianshan in front of him, and the Huayan sect disciples around him were the upper echelons of Changyang Prefecture as well as the guards. If he hadn't gone overboard yesterday, perhaps he wouldn't have ended up like this today. "Changyang Shoten, "Are you satisfied now?" asked the Grand Elder with a gloomy expression. Xianxia smiled freely and cupped his hands. "Since this matter has been resolved, then I should leave. Goodbye." Just as Xianxia finished speaking, a figure flew over from the distance, quickly landing in front of Xianxia. This person wore a set of blue robes. It was the housekeeper of Changyang Prefecture, Chang Wuji. Chang Wuji was worried that Xianxia would cause too much of a ruckus, so he had hurriedly rushed over from Changyang Prefecture in an attempt to stop him. But when he saw the scene in front of him, he immediately relaxed. Although the Huayan sect was in a sorry state, the result was still acceptable. "Chang Bo, why have you come?" Xianxia looked at Chang Bo with a puzzled expression. He respected Chang Bo from the bottom of his heart. Chang Wuji examined Xianxia. Seeing that Xianxia hadn't suffered any injuries, he couldn't help smiling. "Fourth young master, may I ask how the matter has been resolved?" Xianxia told Chang Bo how the matter had been resolved. After hearing it, Chang Bo sighed. "It seems that this old servant has come for nothing. Fourth young master already knows how to act appropriately." Saying that, Chang Wuji glanced at Saya, who had lost his right arm. A trace of schadenfreude appeared in his eyes. The Huayan sect had just recently gained a Heaven Saint Master, and all the disciples of the Huayan sect were extremely proud of it. But now, only a few days had passed, and this Heaven Saint Master had died. This was not only a blow to the Huayan sect, but also a humiliation. Xianxia chuckled and said, "Chang Bo, if there's nothing else, let's go home." Chang Wuji nodded and clasped his hands towards the two Huayan sect Grand Elders. He smiled and said, "Tiancheng Saber, Tiancheng Jian, if you have time in the future, you're welcome to visit our Changyang Prefecture. Farewell. We won't see you out." The two Grand Elders' expressions were very ugly as they expressionlessly said. Afterwards, Xianxia and Chang Wuji shot through the air, leaving behind the Huayan sect's disciples who stood there in a daze. Today's matter had dealt a heavy blow to all of them. This was especially true for the disciples who were incomparably proud of the fact that their sect had gained 3 Heaven Saint Masters. This was an unacceptable reality. Although the news of the 4th young master of the Changyang Prefecture bravely charging into the Huayan sect by himself hadn't spread, the imperial family who had spies all over the country had received the news immediately. That afternoon, in the imperial palace of the Kingdom of Jessan, the Prime Minister of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom had found the King of the Kingdom of Jessan for the second time. He had once again brought up the matter of a marriage alliance with an extremely sincere attitude. The king was extremely moved by the marriage alliance with the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom. The Heavenly Eagle Kingdom was the largest country in a radius of several tens of thousands of kilometers. Its strength was even greater than the Kingdom of Jessan's peak. If they could form a marriage alliance with the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom, it would be a great help to the weakened Kingdom of Jessan that had just ended the war. However, with the revelation of Chang Wuji's strength, the status of the Changyang Prefecture in the king's heart had also risen. Adding on the fact that the 4th young master was a peerless genius and the missing Changyang ancestor who was very likely to have connections with the Qin Empire, it was very difficult for the king to make a decision on who to marry his precious daughter to. If he betrothed his daughter to the Changyang Prefecture, it would be equivalent to making a bet. No one could predict the final outcome, and there was a chance that he would offend the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom. The gains would not make up for the losses. However, if he were to form a marriage alliance with the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom, the Kingdom of Jessan would immediately receive limitless benefits. These were two completely different concepts. A guard in black armor ran in without being reported by anyone. He carried a red flag on his back. This flag possessed special authority in the imperial palace of the Kingdom of Jessan. Only when there was an extremely urgent matter that required an immediate meeting with the king would this flag be carried on his back. Under any circumstances, he could directly meet the king without having to report anything. No one dared to stop him. "Your Majesty, an urgent letter has come from the Huayan sect." "It's extremely urgent." The guard in black armor quickly ran into the hall and knelt on one knee as he reported. Gazing at the flag on the back of the black-armored guard, the king's expression instantly turned solemn. The palace maid by the side quickly walked over, received the letter, and presented it to the king respectfully. The king received the letter from the palace maid. He did not even have the time to exchange pleasantries with the Prime Minister of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom. He immediately opened the letter and began to read it. Suddenly, His Majesty the King stood up from his chair. His hands trembled as he held the letter in his hands. His face was full of shock, and his eyes were wide open. "Your Majesty, what happened?" The Prime Minister sitting across from him asked curiously. The king acted as if he did not hear the Prime Minister's words at all. He repeatedly read the contents of the letter several times before exhaling deeply in order to suppress the shock in his heart. He then quickly walked out of the hall and ordered, "Men, prepare a large gift. This king will immediately make a trip to Lore City. Tell the commander of the Black Armored Army, by Dao, to come see me immediately." The Prime Minister also stood up. Looking at the king's back, he said, "Your Majesty, the marriage alliance between our two kingdoms." Chapter 452. Looking at the king who had already disappeared through the door, Prime Minister Che muttered to himself, "So what if there is an engagement? In any case, they are not married and can cancel it at any time. My Heavenly Eagle Kingdom's prince cannot come here for nothing." From his conversation with the Emperor of the Kingdom of Jesson, Che Cheng had understood that the relationship between the Qin Empire and the Kingdom of Jesson wasn't as close as he had thought. This made him feel much less apprehensive. The matter of Xianxia causing a ruckus in the Huayan sect didn't spread because the Grand Elders of the Huayan sect had already said that if anyone dared to spread this news, they would be expelled from the sect and would also be severely punished. If the Huayan sect wanted to maintain its original position in the Kingdom of Jesson, this matter couldn't be spread no matter what. Otherwise, if outsiders learned that the Huayan sect couldn't even deal with the fourth young master of Changyang Prefecture by himself, the Huayan sect's reputation would plummet. That would be very detrimental to the sect's future development. As for Changyang Prefecture, it would benefit from this. Not only would its reputation rise, but it would also easily surpass the Huayan sect. The two Grand Elders were unwilling to see such an outcome. Xianxia and Changbo had already returned to Changyang Prefecture. Right now, only Changbo, Changyangba, and Bai Yuntian knew that Xianxia had caused a ruckus in the Huayan sect. However, they didn't spread this news. Instead, they were inwardly excited. Who would have thought that the incomparably powerful Huayan sect would be completely suppressed by their own son? Xianxia's battle accomplishments and strength made Changyangba and Bai Yuntian, his parents, feel deeply proud. Following this, Xianxia peacefully stayed in Changyang Prefecture, rarely going out. He spent almost all of his time by his mother's side, chatting with her. As for the white tiger, because it had taken a lot of heavenly treasures, it hadn't completely digested the medicinal effects. It was lying on the bed in Xianxia's room, curled up and sleeping soundly. However, the white tiger's growth rate was indeed very fast. Xianxia had already determined that the white tiger's current strength had already reached the rank of Tier 2 magic beast from the aura emitted from its body. As long as it was given a few more days, it would be able to smoothly step into the rank of Tier 3 magic beast. In the eastern part of Lore City, in a luxurious inn, a young man of about 27 or 28 years of age was sitting at a table, leisurely drinking wine. His gaze was somewhat unfocused as he stared blankly at the busy streets. A waiter walked over with a plate of fragrant magical beast meat in his hands. He gently placed the plate on the table, nodding and bowing as he said, "Sir, your dishes have been served. Do you have any other orders?" Be it the waiter or the manager of the inn, they were all very familiar with this young man in a fiery red robe. This was because this young man had already stayed in this inn for an entire month. He stayed in the best room and ate the best dishes. Not only was he very rich, but he was also very forthright and generous. From time to time, he would reward people with gold coins. In the past month, whether it was the manager of the inn or the waiter of the inn, they had all received a considerable amount of money as a reward. It was equivalent to a year's worth of hard work. As a result, everyone in the inn treated this young man as a god of wealth. The young man waved his hand and dismissed the waiter. Afterwards, he drank alone and ate the delicacies on the table. "I wonder how I can find Xianxia. With Jianxin's identity and strength, he should be very renowned in Lore City. Why hasn't anyone heard the name Jianxin after asking around for so long? Is Jianxin not his real name? The young man murmured to himself in a voice that only he could hear. It had already been a month since he arrived in Lore City. After the mercenary tournament, Jianxin had only told him to find him in the Jessan Kingdom's Lore City. As for where he would be in Lore City, there was no mention of it. Let's wait patiently. Jianxin should have just returned from the sacred grounds. It'll take him several months to get here from Mercenary City unless he uses a space gate, the young man murmured to himself. The young man murmured again. After that, he stopped talking and slowly tasted the delicacies on the table alone. At the same time, two middle-aged men rode two Class 3 magical beasts to the fortress on the border of the kingdom of Jessan. They slowly made their way towards the dilapidated fortress. The two middle-aged men were both in their 40s. One of them was bald, and his upper body was naked. He was tall and sturdy, and the muscles on his body were bulging. They were very distinct and gave people a strong visual impact. The other middle-aged man looked more scholarly. He wore a light green robe, and his long black hair was casually draped over his shoulders. Although he had a scholarly aura, his eyes were flashing with a sharp light. Yunzheng looked. There's a fortress up ahead. That should be the kingdom of Jessan, right? The burly man pointed at the dilapidated fortress. Hearing this, Yunzheng took out a map from his space belt and looked at it for a while. Slowly nodding his head, he said, "That's right. According to the map, the Jessan kingdom is indeed in front of us." Looking at the battered state of the fortress, it must have just experienced a great battle. There is even a faint smell of blood in the air. The burly man exhaled deeply and sighed emotionally. "We finally arrived at the kingdom of Jessan after half a year of traveling. Let's not think too much about it. Let's go into the city and rest. It's been a long time since we've had a good meal. Once we're full, we'll slowly make our way to Lore City." Outside of Lore City, 5 people of different ages and dressed in luxurious robes were walking on the official road at the pace of ordinary people. They looked ordinary, but each of them was emitting an inexplicable aura that imperceptibly affected the surrounding mercenaries and caravans. Anyone who passed by the 5 of them would subconsciously avoid them, not daring to come close at all. 10 kilometers ahead, the tall walls of Lore City could be clearly seen. Luo Tian held a jug of wine in his hand as he walked. He took a big gulp of strong liquor and turned to the old man beside him. "Xiaodan, Lore City is a first-class city. It's not small. How are we going to find the Imperial Protector when we get there?" Xiao Tian shook his head. "The Imperial Protector didn't say. Let's talk about it when we get there." "Oh right, is the Imperial Protector really from the Kingdom of Jessan? Why don't the powerhouses of the Kingdom of Jessan know the name of the Imperial Protector? This is unbelievable," Qing Xiaofan said with a puzzled expression. "I also find it strange. With the Imperial Protector's talent and strength, there should be no one in the Jessan Kingdom who doesn't know of him. Yet he's so obscure and unknown. It's too inexplicable." The one who spoke was Dongyi Junbai. Xiao Tian looked at them with dissatisfaction and frowned. "All right, we're on the official road. Let's not talk about it. I believe this problem will be solved soon." Right at this moment, the ground began to tremble slightly. Not long after, a series of galloping sounds came from behind. A large group of cavalrymen dressed in black armor, all riding on magical beast mounts, sprinted over from behind. Along the way, they kicked up a cloud of dust, like a rolling yellow dragon that stretched for several kilometers. Several large flags were planted in the middle of this group of cavalrymen, causing the expressions of all the mercenaries and merchants to change. "That's the black armored army of the imperial family. Quick, move out of the way." The mercenaries and merchants walking on the official road turned pale with fright as they hurriedly controlled their carriages to move to the side, opening up the wide road for the black armored army to pass through. Soon after, they all looked at the black armored army that was galloping past them with astonishment, their hearts filled with doubt. The black armored army is the strongest army that protects the imperial family. Normally, they wouldn't go out at all. What's going on today? The entire black armored army was mobilized, and in such a hurry. Could it be that something big has happened? Many mercenaries and caravans began to guess in their hearts. At this moment, the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire also stopped and looked back at the black armored army that was galloping towards them. Huh! Isn't that the king of the kingdom of Jessan? Why is he here? Is he here to look for us? Luo Tian said with some surprise. The marching speed of the black armored army was very fast, and it didn't take long for them to close in on the 5 imperial advisors. At this time, the Jessan kingdom's king, who was also riding a magical beast and surrounded by several black armored army experts, suddenly noticed the 5 imperial advisors on the side of the road. With a look of shock, he immediately shouted, "Stop!" Soon, the black armored army that was galloping at high speed stopped. The king of the kingdom of Jessan immediately jumped off his magical beast and walked quickly to the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire. With a warm smile on his face, he cupped his hands and said, "I didn't expect to meet the 5 imperial advisors here. What a coincidence!" The experts of the black armored army following behind the king also recognized the 5 imperial advisors and cupped their hands in salute. "Your Majesty, you seem to be in a hurry. May I ask what has happened?" Dongyi Junbai asked curiously. The king chuckled and said, "You may not believe me if I tell you, but an unprecedented genius has appeared in our kingdom of Jessan. He has reached the Heaven Saint Master level at such a young age and fought against 3 Heaven Saint Masters alone. Not only did he come out unscathed, he even heavily injured his opponents. I find it hard to believe." Hearing this, the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire looked at each other with a strange expression. Xiao Tian immediately asked, "Your Majesty, may I ask who this person is?" "He is the 4th young master of the Changyang Prefecture, Changyang Shoten." The king did not hide anything and said with a chuckle. He had his own thoughts. With the talent Changyang Shoten had displayed, the Qin Empire would definitely spare no effort to rope him in. Moreover, Changyang Shoten was engaged to his daughter, so he was not an outsider. Once Changyang Shoten had a relationship with the Qin Empire, the kingdom of Jessan would benefit greatly. They could even use Changyang Shoten's relationship with the kingdom of Jessan to climb up to the Qin Empire. The 4th young master of the Changyang Prefecture, Changyang Shoten. Chapter 453. Afterward, the king of the kingdom of Jessan and the 5 imperial advisors entered Lore City together. They passed through the streets of Lore City for a while before stopping at the gates of Changyang Prefecture. The surrounding black armored army immediately spread out to guard the surroundings, ensuring the king's safety. Although the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire were present and basically no one could harm the king of the kingdom of Jessan, the black armored army still carried out their duties. The commander of the black armored army, Bai Dao, stared at the grand gates of Changyang Prefecture with a complicated expression. He was filled with all sorts of emotions, but he didn't know what to feel because he had already learned quite a few things from the king. Changyang Prefecture had already received news of the king's arrival, so the gates were wide open. All the upper echelons of Changyang Prefecture gathered at the entrance to welcome the king. Changyang Ba and Chang Bo stood at the very front. The second row was made up of the elders of the prefecture, while the third row was made up of Genshin and his aunts. "Welcome to my Changyang clan, Your Majesty. Your arrival truly brings light to my Changyang clan." The leader of the Changyang clan bowed. The patriarch of Changyang Prefecture, Changyang Ba, immediately went up to welcome the king with a smile. Chang Bo followed behind Changyang Ba. The king received a gift from a black armored army guard beside him and personally handed it to Changyang Ba. He smiled. "It's been many years since I've been to Lore City. It's rare that I have time today, so I've specially come to take a look. I hope I won't disturb you all." Changyang Ba chuckled and exchanged a few pleasantries with the king. Suddenly, his eyes caught sight of the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire behind him. His expression immediately changed and became solemn. He hurriedly clasped his hands and said, "I never thought that the imperial advisors would be here as well. Our Changyang Prefecture has truly neglected you. Please come in." Changyang Ba's expression became much more solemn in front of the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire. He didn't dare to slight them in the slightest. Changbo also clasped his hands and greeted the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire. After exchanging a few pleasantries, he warmly invited them into Changyang Prefecture. If the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire were to be guests in Changyang Prefecture, it would be a great honor for Changyang Prefecture. When the guards and a few elders of Changyang Prefecture discovered that even the imperial advisors of the Qin Empire had come, they all became extremely excited generals of Changyang Prefecture. The 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire didn't put on any airs in front of Changyang Ba and Changbo's enthusiasm. They all returned the greetings with smiles on their faces and were very polite. Their attitude towards them was much more cordial than when they were in the imperial palace. Soon after, the king and the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire entered Changyang Prefecture at the same time. At this time, the king suddenly said, "Changyang Ba, I heard that Changyang Shoten has come back. I wonder where he is. Can I meet him? Speaking of which, I haven't seen this future son-in-law of mine even once." Ha! Changyang Ba's face revealed a trace of a smile, but his heart was as clear as snow. He looked at Jianshan, who was behind a dozen elders, and said with a smile, "Xianxia, why don't you come out and greet His Majesty? Perhaps it would be more appropriate to call him father-in-law." Changbo suddenly said with a smile on his face. Hearing this, the king was slightly startled. Then he laughed heartily. Changyang Ba also laughed a few times on the side, appearing to be very happy. The dozen elders moved aside to make a path. Jianshan, who was wearing a white robe, walked out in large strides. He came to the front of the king of the kingdom of Jessan and cupped his hands. With a smile on his face, he said in a manner that was neither servile nor overbearing, "Changyang Shoten greets your majesty." The king carefully sized up Jianshan. He saw that Jianshan had short hair that was only an inch long. He was very handsome, and his exquisite facial features were so perfect that no one could find fault with them. Coupled with his white and tender skin that even women would be jealous of, he was the killer of all the girls in the world. Under his handsome appearance, he also had a resolute temperament. It was as if he had witnessed Jianshan's growth and maturity, and was not a frivolous playboy. Good. Looking at this future son-in-law in front of him, the king became more and more satisfied. He said the word "good" 3 times in a row. As an emperor, he had seen countless people in his life. Naturally, he could tell that Jianshan was extraordinary. Seeing Jianshan in person was not as good as hearing about him. The moment he saw Jianshan in person, his evaluation of Jianshan in his heart improved a lot. "He really is a dragon among men," the king exclaimed. Changyang Ba just looked at his son with a smile on his face. He was very proud of himself. The 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire also saw Jianshan. They were shocked. They looked at each other and then stepped forward at the same time. They cupped their hands at Jianshan and said in unison, "Greetings, Lord Imperial Protector." When the 5 imperial advisors greeted Lord Imperial Protector, the king of the kingdom of Jessan and Changyang Ba's expressions froze. They stared blankly at the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire who were saluting Jianshan. They fell into a daze and couldn't come back to their senses for a long time. The group of elders and guards of Changyang Prefecture, as well as the experts of the Black Armored Army who followed the king of the kingdom of Jessan, all had the same expression. They stared blankly at the 5 imperial advisors who were saluting Jianshan. Their faces were full of disbelief. Imperial Protector? How can the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire be called Changyang Shoten, the Imperial Protector? Third Aunt Bai Yushuang looked at the scene in front of her in shock. Her heart was in turmoil and she couldn't calm down. Jianshan looked at Xiaotian and the others with a wry smile and said, "I didn't expect you to find me so quickly." Qing Xiaofan looked around and chuckled, "Lord Imperial Protector, I hope we haven't caused you any trouble." Jianshan sighed softly. Just as he was about to speak, Changyang Ba's voice sounded, "Xianxia, what is going on?" Changyang Ba's voice was trembling. It was difficult to conceal the excitement in his voice. Everyone had heard the words Imperial Protector, loud and clear. It was just that they found it hard to believe. The 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire actually called his son the Imperial Protector. If that was the case, then the Imperial Protector who sent the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire to help the kingdom of Jessan fend off the allied forces of the 4 empires was his 4th son, Changyang Shoten? At this time, the king and Changbo also regained their senses. They looked at Jianshan in shock, waiting for Jianshan's reply. Jianshan pondered for a moment, then said, "Father, let's talk in the Grand Hall." Changyang Ba suddenly came to his senses. He suppressed the urgency in his heart and hurriedly said, "Yes, yes, yes. Let's talk in the Grand Hall. Your Majesty, the 5 imperial advisors, please come in." Immediately, all the higher-ups of Changyang Prefecture, the king of the Qin Empire, and the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire gathered in the Grand Hall. Jianshan's mother and 3 aunts were not qualified to participate in such a high-level event. However, they also wanted to know the relationship between Jianshan and the Qin Empire, so they had no choice but to brace themselves and enter. There were not many seats in the Grand Hall. A group of old people from Changyang Prefecture took the initiative to give up their seats. All the old people stood quietly to one side, not saying a word. However, their eyes were still filled with shock as they looked at Jianshan. Their minds were still replaying the scene from before. The 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire had actually called the 4th young master of Changyang Prefecture the Imperial Protector. This scene was also very hard for them to believe. Because the dozen or so old people had not taken their seats, the mounts were quite empty. Jianshan took his mother's hand and sat down on a chair. Then he sat down beside her. "Xianxia, what's going on? Are you the Imperial Protector of the Qin Empire?" Changyang Ba asked impatiently as soon as he sat down, unable to hold back the anxiety in his heart. "That's right, father. I have another identity. I am the Imperial Protector of the Qin Empire," Jianshan said truthfully. Now that things had progressed to this point, there was no need to hide anything. Changyang Ba's body couldn't help but tremble. His expression immediately became very excited. Then he looked at the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire who were sitting together with him, as if seeking confirmation. The rest of the people in the Grand Hall were also stunned by Jianshan's words. Their eyes lost their focus, especially the dozen or so old people and Changbo. Their emotions fluctuated greatly. The mysterious imperial protector of the Qin Empire was actually one of their own people. The 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire all nodded with a smile, confirming this fact. Among the people present, the king was the most shocked, and the one who couldn't believe it the most. The identity of the imperial protector of the Qin Empire had always been very mysterious. During this period of time, the king had wondered more than once about the relationship between the Qin Empire and the kingdom of Jessan. He had also wondered how he could truly climb up to the great tree that was the Qin Empire. Because of these questions, he had racked his brains over the past few days, but in the end he still couldn't find a feasible way. But now, he had never expected that things would turn out so dramatically. The imperial protector of the Qin Empire, who he had tried so hard to find and curry favor with, was actually his future son-in-law. This result made the king of the kingdom of Jessan not know whether to laugh or cry. He didn't know whether to be happy or sad. "My dear nephew, you've kept us in the dark for so long," the king said with a wry smile. After learning that Jianshan was the imperial protector of the Qin Empire, he was so happy that he even changed the way he addressed Jianshan. Chang Wuji also let out a sigh. He looked at Jianshan with gratification and said, "Fourth young master, I didn't expect you to have such an identity. Our Changyang prefecture has benefited a lot from you." Chapter 454. Then they chatted and laughed with each other in the hall. Since the 5 imperial preceptors of the Qin Empire knew the exact identity of the imperial protector, they treated the people of Changyang Prefecture very politely. They had long since put aside the noble identity of the Qin Empire's imperial preceptor. The 5 imperial preceptors' attitude greatly satisfied the vanity and honor of Changyang Ba and the dozen or so elders. It made all the higher-ups of Changyang Prefecture feel proud. Because of the relationship with Jianshan, the status of Changyang Prefecture was like a carp leaping over the dragon's gate, leaping thousands of feet high and turning into a giant dragon. Among the people sitting there, only the king of the kingdom of Jessen had the lowest status. However, the king did not care about this at all. Instead, he was very excited. He swore that he had never been so excited in his life. After the people chatted for a while in the conference hall of Changyang Prefecture, the banquet was ready. Then, Changyang Ba stood up and warmly invited the distinguished guests to the banquet. "Xianxia, come with me." Changyang Ba affectionately took Jianxin's hand and walked outside. Jianxin could clearly feel that his father's hand was trembling slightly. The banquet was arranged in a spacious hall. The best maids in Changyang Prefecture were all gathered here. However, there was only one table for the banquet, and only 10 chairs were placed. The 5 imperial preceptors of the Qin Empire, the king of the kingdom of Jessen, the family head of Changyang Prefecture and Changbo, as well as Jianxin and his mother, Bai Yuntian, took their seats at the same time. This arrangement was agreed upon by all the higher-ups of Changyang Prefecture. Although Changyang Ba and Bai Yuntian's seniority was not the highest in Changyang Prefecture, it was because they had such an outstanding son that the elders who held all kinds of power in Changyang Prefecture made such an arrangement. It imperceptibly raised their status. As for Changbo, although he was only a housekeeper on the surface, his status in Changyang Prefecture was very special. He deserved to participate in such a high-level banquet. Alas, Xianxia also benefited from a disaster. When he was 15 years old, he was forced to leave home because of some things. He left for 6 years. None of us expected that Xianxia would grow to such a height after 6 years. It's really unbelievable. At the table, Changyang Ba said with a sigh. Yes, nephew's talent is really high. It's really unprecedented. His Majesty the King sighed. Hearing the two's words, the 5 imperial preceptors of the Qin Empire looked at each other. Their eyes were full of shock. Although Jianxin was very young, they thought that Jianxin's age must be older than what he appeared to be. After all, it was impossible to judge a person's age by appearance alone. Now that they heard Changyang Ba's words, the 5 suddenly understood that Jianxin's age was much younger than they thought. He was only 21 years old. A 21-year-old Heaven Saint Master. Thinking of this, Xiaotian and the others were shocked. They had previously guessed Jianxin's age. Although Jianxin was less than 50 years old, they thought that he was at least 30 years old. But now, after knowing Jianxin's exact age, the 5 of them were shocked speechless. A 21-year-old Heaven Saint Master was really unprecedented. The most outstanding genius in the Tianyuan continent only reached the realm of Heaven Saint Master at 30 years old. But this genius's final achievement was the Supreme Holy Emperor. After this matter, the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Huang Kingdom secretly made up their minds to use this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to curry favor with the imperial protector and nurture their relationship to the deepest level. This was because they knew that the youngest imperial protector in the history of the Qin Huang Kingdom would most likely become a supreme existence like the sacred king in the future. After the banquet ended, the 5 people did not leave. They gathered again in the discussion hall of Changyang Prefecture and continued to chat. It was evening before they all left. In private, the king of the kingdom of Jessen found Changyang Ba and Bai Yuntian. He said, "In-laws, the war has just ended. This king still has many matters to attend to, so I will have to leave early tomorrow morning. This king hopes that you can enter the imperial palace and discuss the marriage between my daughter and Xiangtian. These 2 children are not young anymore, so it is time for this marriage." Of course. Don't worry, Your Majesty. Once the estate has settled down, we will immediately bring Xianxia to the imperial palace. I hope we won't cause any trouble for Your Majesty. Changyang Ba chuckled. Although his son's status was different from before, he still approved of this marriage. On one hand, it was to make the king feel at ease. On the other hand, it was also to acknowledge the Princess of Glan. This was because Changyang Ba had seen the Princess of Glan before. He could not help but sigh in admiration. The Princess of Glan was truly an outstanding girl. What are you talking about? I'm more than happy. How can it be troublesome? The king was very happy and laughed loudly. He used this to vent the joy in his heart. His heart that was in his throat finally calmed down. After the king left, Changyangba and Bai Yuntian went to Jianxin's room. They found that the 5 imperial preceptors of the Qin Empire were also in Jianxin's room. Changyangba and his wife exchanged greetings with the 5 imperial preceptors of the Qin Empire. Then they looked at Jianxin and said with a smile, "Xianxia, get ready tonight. We will go to the imperial palace tomorrow morning." "Yes, father," Jianxin replied. This was within his expectations. Now that his identity as the imperial protector of the Qin Empire had been exposed, it would be abnormal if the king of the kingdom of Jessan still did not take action to rope in the Changyang prefecture. Jianxin also wanted to use this relationship to help the kingdom of Jessan climb up the big tree of the Qin Empire. No matter what, the kingdom of Jessan was his motherland. This country was also the result of the blood and sweat of the ancestors of Changyang Prefecture. As a descendant of Changyang Prefecture, he should do his part. Changyangba and Bai Yuntian wanted to say a few more words with Jianxin, but they finally left after looking at the 5 imperial preceptors. After Changyangba and Bai Yuntian left, Jianxin stood in the room and pondered for a while. Then he walked to the bedside and sat down. He said, "I will go to the imperial palace tomorrow morning. The 5 of you can stay in Changyang Prefecture for a few days." "Yes, Imperial Protector," Xiaotian and the other 4 answered in unison. Unconsciously, their attitude towards Jianxin became more respectful. Not to mention Jianxin's terrifying potential, his current strength was not weaker than theirs at all. He was even stronger than them. As soon as the 5 imperial preceptors of the Qin Empire left, a maid who was waiting outside came in. "Fourth young master, madam and master ask you to go to the conference hall." "Got it? You can leave now," Jianxin said lightly. "Sir." The maid left. Jianxin arrived before the bed and looked at the white tiger that was sleeping soundly beside the pillow before leaving. He walked towards the conference hall. It was already dark outside, but Changyang Prefecture was still brightly lit. Pairs of black-armored soldiers with cold gazes walked through Changyang Prefecture. Aside from the original guards of Changyang Prefecture, there was now a new group of black-armored soldiers that specialized in protecting the imperial family. Jianxin walked into the conference hall. The conference hall was no longer as lively as it was during the day. There were only 3 people inside. 2 of them were Jianxin's parents and the third was a middle-aged man in black armor. Jianxin recognized this middle-aged man. He was his uncle Bai Dao. Bai Yuntian and Changyangba sat across from Bai Dao. "Xianxia, come and greet your uncle," Bai Yuntian said to Jianxin. Bai Dao also turned his head to look at his nephew. He felt gratified as he smiled faintly. Jianxin strode forward and said, "Uncle." Bai Dao stood up from his chair and laughed aloud. Good. You truly are a descendant of my Bai family." With that, Bai Dao strode toward Jianxin. Suddenly, he threw a punch at Jianxin's chest with lightning-like speed. Surging wind-attributed Saint force radiated from his fist, causing a violent gust of wind to sweep through the entire hall. He had clearly used his full strength. Bai Dao's attack was so sudden that it came without any warning. Coupled with his strength as an Earth Saint Master, Changyangba was unable to react in time. Jianxin smiled. With a thought, the qi of the world condensed in his hand. He then gently struck out with his palm, blocking Bai Dao's punch. The two collided, producing a heavy sound in the air. Since both of them controlled their energy very well, no shockwaves spread out. Thump, thump, thump. Bai Dao staggered back a few steps before stabilizing himself with great difficulty. His smile became even wider as he laughed aloud, controlling the energy of the world. "Xiangtian, you really have become a Heaven Saint Master. No wonder you're the imperial protector of the Qin Empire." "Brother, you should believe me now, right?" Bai Yuntian said rather complacently. As a mother, she felt extremely proud of her son's accomplishments. I do. Of course I do." "Ha!" Bai Dao chuckled. He was clearly extremely happy. A thin layer of mist quickly appeared in his eyes, but it dispersed very quickly, so no one noticed. Changyangba stood up from his chair and smiled. Bai Dao, it's been 6 years since the two of you have seen each other. You two chat first. I'll go deal with the matters of the clan. Xianxia, you stay here with your mother and uncle. With that, Changyang Ba left the discussion hall. Bai Dao calmed down very quickly. He looked at his nephew with mixed feelings and sighed, a 21-year-old Heaven Saint Master. I never thought that such an outstanding descendant would appear after my Bai family was destroyed. Bai Dao sighed before gradually becoming stern. He stared at Xianxia and sternly said, Xiangtian, Uncle knows that your status is different now, but Uncle still wants you to remember one thing. Not only do you have the bloodline of the Changyang Prefecture, you also have the bloodline of my Bai family. The blood feud of my Bai family will all depend on you in the future. Bai Yuntian frowned and looked at Bai Dao with some reproach. She said with great dissatisfaction, Brother, Xianxia is still young, so why are you bringing up the past? Xianxia has already suffered enough outside. He's finally come to an end after so much difficulty, so don't add more burdens to Xianxia's shoulders. Chapter 455. Xianxia, you don't have to worry about the Bai family right now. Let's talk about it in the future, okay? Bai Yuntian was rather uneasy. Even though her son was the imperial protector of the Qin Empire, the enemies of the Bai family were not weak and their identities were still unknown. Even the ancestor of the Bai family, who was a saint ruler, could not deal with them, so how could her son deal with them? At the very least, he could not right now. Xiangtian, your mother is right. We just need to remember the enmity of the Bai family. As for revenge, let's talk about it in the future because we don't even know the identity of our enemies. Perhaps our ancestors will know a little, Bai Dao said in a low voice. A sliver of sadness appeared on his face when he talked about the past. Bai Dao paused before continuing. Although the 4 Heaven Saint Masters of our Bai family have all passed away, we still have a saint ruler ancestor whose fate is unknown. Perhaps he's still alive. Our priority right now is to find him. But we don't know where he is right now and whether he's still alive. Bai Yuntian was rather worried. Saint rulers don't die so easily. With Xiangtian's talent, I'm sure he'll reach that level sooner or later. It'll be much easier to find him then. Bai Dao looked at Xianxia and said, Xiangtian, I hope you can pay attention to any news of our ancestor in the future. I will. Xianxia nodded. Xianxia and his mother chatted with Bai Dao for a while longer. In the end, they saw that it was getting late, so the 3 of them dispersed and returned to their rooms to rest. The night passed in a hurry. The next morning, Xianxia emerged from his room with the white tiger in his arms. After eating a sumptuous breakfast with everyone, he left Changyang Prefecture with Changyang Ba and Bai Yuntian. They hurried to the imperial palace with the black-armored army of the kingdom of Jessan. The 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire remained in Changyang Prefecture and were warmly received by everyone in the prefecture. Xianxia had actually left the 5 of them behind for some selfish reasons. He wanted to increase the deterrence of Changyang Prefecture. After several hours of travel, they finally arrived at the imperial palace in the evening. The king brought Xianxia, Bai Yuntian, and Bai Yuntian to an elegant hall to rest. He called for a few palace maids to serve them before leaving in a hurry. Not long after the king had returned to the imperial palace, a young man in his 20s and an old man sat across from each other in a luxurious room specially used for receiving important guests. They spoke softly. At this moment, a middle-aged man quickly walked in from outside. He knelt down on one knee before the 2 of them and said, Second Prince, Prime Minister Che, the king of the kingdom of Jessan has returned to the imperial palace. However, there are 3 more people in the group. They seem to be of a special status. Hearing this, Prime Minister Che frowned slightly and said, Did anyone find out who they are? Prime Minister, I've already found out. The 3 of them are from a clan called Changyang Prefecture. They seem to have an important status in the kingdom of Jessan, said the middle-aged man. A gleam of light flashed through Prime Minister Che's eyes and he said, You can leave. Pay close attention to their every move. Yes, Prime Minister. The middle-aged man quickly left. Che Chenxiang thought for a while and muttered, Changyang Prefecture. They're actually from Changyang Prefecture. A few years ago, the king of the kingdom of Jessan seemed to have betrothed Princess Glan to someone called Changyang Shoten. This Changyang Shoten is the fourth young master of Changyang Prefecture. Yesterday, the king rejected the marriage proposal from our heavenly eagle kingdom. Today, he invited people from Changyang Prefecture to the imperial palace. The meaning behind this is self-evident. A sharp gleam flashed through the second prince's eyes. He slowly took a sip of tea and said calmly, "The king of the kingdom of Jessan really doesn't know what's good for him. Our heavenly eagle kingdom took the initiative to form a marriage alliance with them. Not only did he not cherish this opportunity, he even made us look bad." The second prince was very angry. Prime Minister Che chuckled, "Second prince, please calm down. The marriage alliance was a task given to me by the king. I will do my best to complete it. As for the relationship between the kingdom of Jessan and the Qin Empire, it's not as close as we think. There's nothing to worry about." Hearing this, the second prince smiled faintly and said, "Then I'll have to trouble you, Prime Minister." The Prime Minister stroked the long beard on his chin. His eyes flashed as he looked at the second prince and smiled. Could it be that the second prince has feelings for the Princess of Glan? The second prince nodded slightly and said, "It's rare to meet someone who is famous. This Princess of Glan is indeed very outstanding in all aspects. Not only is her cultivation talent not inferior to mine, but she's also very beautiful. Moreover, I feel a feeling from her that I have never felt from other girls. She's so beautiful that she's out of this world, gentle and elegant, like a fairy in the mortal world." Prime Minister Che laughed foolishly. As an old man, he could tell at a glance that the second prince had feelings for the Princess of Glan. At the same time, in a room with pink silk hanging everywhere in the palace, a woman with long black hair was sitting in front of a dressing table. Her arms were moving like a machine as she slowly combed her hair. Her white and tender fingers were holding a wooden comb. Her movements were graceful and had a natural charm. She wore a black and white dress. Her heavenly beauty had a hint of innocence. Although the light in her eyes was dim, it couldn't hide the seductive light in her eyes. It was as if she had the ability to steal people's souls. "May I come in?" A middle-aged man's voice came from outside the door. It was very gentle. "Father, come in." The woman sitting at the dressing table said calmly. The door opened and the king of the kingdom of Jessan strode in. When he saw his daughter combing her hair, he sighed inside and said, I can understand your feelings, but as the ruler of a kingdom, there are many things that are beyond my control." "Father, I understand. From the day I was born into the imperial clan, my fate was no longer in my control," the woman said emotionlessly. She was extremely dejected. There's no need to be so sad. You're my most beloved daughter, so how can I let you suffer? You is so outstanding. There's only one person who's worthy of you in my heart. Hurry up and dress up. We still have to go see the Changyang clan and your future husband, Changyang Shoten." "Changyang Shoten? Isn't that the prince of the heavenly eagle kingdom?" the woman asked softly. She was rather doubtful. "The heavenly eagle kingdom." The king murmured. Disdain appeared in his eyes as he said, "How can the prince of the heavenly eagle kingdom be worthy of you? There are some things that you might not know. Now that things have come to this, it's time to tell you." The king paused for a moment and slowly walked behind Yu. He looked at his daughter's beauty through the reflection of the bronze mirror and smiled. You once stayed in Kargath Academy for a period of time. I believe you've seen Changyang Shoten before. After a few years, Changyang Shoten's accomplishments have reached a height that even I can only look up to. Did you know that Changyang Shoten is only 21 years old, but he's already a Heaven Saint Master? He's even defeated 3 Heaven Saint Masters from the Huayan sect by himself. Yu's eyes immediately recovered. Her face was filled with disbelief. Her mind was filled with the words, "a 21-year-old Heaven Saint Master." The king continued, "That's not all. Do you know why the imperial advisors of the Qin Empire suddenly came to our kingdom of Jessan's aid?" Blankly shook her head. "This is all thanks to Changyang Shoten. At the same time, Xianxia Shoten is also the imperial protector of the Qin Empire. The 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire came to our kingdom of Jessen's aid because of Xianxia Shoten. At this point, the Jessen kingdom's king couldn't hide the excitement in his voice. This was truly too inspiring. This piece of news was even more shocking than the previous one. Yu Er's eyes immediately widened when she heard this. Her cherry-like mouth opened slightly, forming an O shape. Her face was filled with disbelief. After a long while, Yu Er finally returned to her senses. She turned her head and looked at the king in shock. She covered her mouth and cried out, How is this possible? Father, you're not lying to me, are you? The king chuckled and said, do you think father would joke about something like this? Alright, you should dress up and come with me to see Xianxia Shoten. Our kingdom of Jessen needs to curry favor with the current Xiangyang prefecture. The future of our kingdom of Jessen depends on them. Haha, I never thought that Sir Imperial Protector would actually be the 4th young master of the Xiangyang prefecture. This is truly shocking. My name is Yi Ming. Sir Imperial Protector, you can just call me by my name. In the hall, an old man in white robes laughed loudly. His face was filled with unconcealable excitement and joy. This old man was a heaven saint master who guarded the imperial palace of the kingdom of Jessen. He had met Xianxia before at the eastern fort. Xianxia nodded with a smile and did not say anything else. Sir Imperial Protector, I heard that you were once a student of Kargath Academy. The principal of Kargath Academy, Kafir, has already received the news and should be on his way. I believe he will arrive at the imperial palace soon. When he discovers that Sir Imperial Protector was actually once a student of his, I really wonder what kind of expression he will have. Ha! Yi Ming chuckled. Ha! The imperial ancestor will probably be so shocked that he won't be able to say anything. As soon as Yi Ming finished speaking, a voice suddenly rang out. The king was walking in with large strides. Yu, who had already changed into a beautiful white dress, was silently following behind him. A strange light flashed through her beautiful eyes as she curiously studied the 3 people from Xiangyang Prefecture. Her gaze soon froze on Xianxin's face. Nephew, this is my daughter, Princess Glan. Her name is Yu. This name was given to her by Yu Er's mother. As soon as they entered the hall, the king impatiently introduced his daughter. However, when he mentioned Yu's mother, a trace of sadness appeared on his face. Chapter 456. Xianxin stood up from his chair and looked at Yu with a calm gaze. He smiled and said, Greetings, Princess Glan. The Princess of Glan was wearing a white robe as she stood obediently behind the king. Her waist-long hair had been styled into a beautiful and exquisite hairstyle, adding a touch of enchanting color to her already heavenly beauty. She was able to steal one's soul. Princess Glan did not say anything, nor did she return the greeting. She stared at Xianxin with a strange look in her beautiful eyes. Her bright and innocent eyes blinked and flickered with a wise radiance. The king chuckled and said, My dear nephew, this is your first time in the palace of the kingdom of Jessen, right? Let Yu show you around. As he spoke, the king did not wait for Xianxin's reply and used his eyes to signal Princess Glan, who was standing behind him. Princess Glan understood and said gently, Princess Xianxia Shoten, please come with me. Princess Glan's voice was very gentle and it was very comforting. Then I'll have to trouble you, Princess Glan. Xianxin smiled and returned the greeting. He then walked out. He also had some things to discuss with Princess Glan. Changyang Ba and Bai Yuntian smiled when they saw Princess Glan walk out of the hall. They were very satisfied with Princess Glan. In the kingdom of Jessen, other than Princess Glan, they could not find another girl who was worthy of their son. The king had an excited smile on his face as he sat down next to Yi Ming. He happened to be facing Changyang Ba and Bai Yuntian. In-law, my dear nephew Xiangtian and you are not young anymore. I think we should find some time to arrange this marriage. The king chuckled as he said. He was now hoping that this marriage could be arranged as soon as possible. Changyang Ba and Bai Yuntian looked at each other and pondered for a moment. Bai Yuntian then said, Your Majesty, We also agree with the marriage between Xianxia and Princess Glan. However, Xianxia has grown up and has become someone who can take charge. There are some things that we can't interfere with directly. I think we should discuss this with Xianxia and see what he thinks. Hearing this, the king's eyes revealed a trace of disappointment. However, he still agreed with Bai Yuntian's suggestion. In the palace where the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom's special envoy was resting, a guard quickly ran in and reporting to the second prince, Prime Minister, the king of the Kingdom of Jessan has brought Princess Glan over. Then, Princess Glan walked out with a young man who looked to be in his 20s. They are walking towards the Imperial Garden. You may leave. The Prime Minister waved his hand and ordered the guard to leave. His brows were tightly furrowed. A fierce look flashed across the second prince's eyes. His face was a little gloomy. That young man is undoubtedly Xianxia Shoten. The king of the Kingdom of Jessan is really refusing a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. I personally came here, but he treated me like this. How preposterous. The Prime Minister also coldly snorted and said, "It seems that the king of the Kingdom of Jessan is determined to betroth Princess Glan to Xiangyang Prefecture. This Prime Minister will go find the king and ask him face to face." After saying this, the Prime Minister swung his hand and left. There was a trace of anger on his face. After the Prime Minister left, the second prince of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom pondered for a moment. Then he coldly snorted and said in a low voice, "Xiangyang Shoten, this prince wants to see what kind of ability you have. The person this prince has taken a fancy to is not someone you can taint." After saying this, the second prince quickly walked out of the palace and led a few experts from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom to the Imperial Garden. Xianxia followed the Glan princess around the Imperial Palace and soon arrived in a world of flowers. This was a sea of flowers with over 100 types of exotic flowers. The brightly colored flowers formed a perfect picture in the sea of flowers. The dense fragrance of the several dozen types of flowers permeated the air, dyeing the air in this space with a refreshing fragrance. Just a casual breath would make one feel refreshed. Along the way, the two of them didn't speak. The Princess Glan clearly liked this place. She leisurely walked around the flower bed surrounded by all kinds of flowers. There was a faint smile on her face as she looked at these brightly colored flowers. This is the largest garden in the Kingdom of Jessan's palace. I like this place very much. As long as I am in the palace, I will come here every day to look at these beautiful flowers. This is because many of them were personally planted by me. The Princess Glan said with a smile. Her voice was clear and melodious, as moving as a lark. She was wearing a snow-white dress. Coupled with her heavenly beauty, she stood in the sea of flowers like a flower fairy. She was so beautiful. Xianxia stared at the Princess Glan's beautiful face for a while and said, "Princess Glan, have we met somewhere before?" This sentence had been in Xianxia's heart for a long time. Hearing this, the Princess Glan moved her gaze away from the flowers and turned to look at Xianxia. She smiled faintly and said, "My name is Yu, Xiangyang Shoten. I don't know if you still remember." A figure suddenly appeared in Xianxia's mind. He suddenly realized, "So it's you. We seem to have met a few years ago in Kargath Academy. No wonder I found the Princess Glan familiar." The Princess Glan could not help but recall the scene from a few years ago. At that time, she had met Xiangyang Shoten for the first time in Kargath Academy's library. Xiangyang Shoten's desire and obsession with books had left a deep impression on her. But now, only a few years had passed, and the puny saint from back then had become a peak expert of the Tianyuan continent. Moreover, the Jessan Kingdom, which had been in danger of being destroyed, had been saved by him alone. This made the Glan princess sigh in amazement, but she also found it hard to believe. Looking at the handsome Xiangyang Shoten before her, the Princess Glan hesitated slightly before saying, "Xiangyang Shoten, I heard from my father that you are already a Heaven Saint Master. I wonder if you can let me experience the feeling of flying." Hearing this, Xianxia hesitated for a while before nodding in the end. He smiled, "Princess, please get ready." With that, Xianxia gently grabbed the Princess Glan's arm with his right hand. Although there was a layer of clothes between them, Jianchen could clearly feel the soft and supple skin of the Princess Glan's arm. The Princess Glan's arm was very slender and soft. Jianchen's small hand could wrap around it. The moment her arm was grabbed by Jianchen, a trace of panic appeared on the Princess Glan's face. Ever since she was young, other than her father, no other man had ever touched her body. However, before she could think about it, a dense layer of wind elemental energy enveloped her body. Afterward, she felt her feet leave the ground as she slowly rose into the air. Jianchen was calm. His eyes were as clear as water. He carefully rose into the air with the Grand Princess, slowly ascending into the sky. The Princess Glan calmed down very quickly. Her attention was completely attracted by the novelty of flying. Her face was filled with curiosity and joy as she looked at the shrinking palace below her. Her face was filled with excitement. Is this what it means to fly in the air? Flying freely in the sky like a bird. How enviable! The Princess Glan's face was filled with unconcealable envy. Princess Glan's talent is extraordinary. As long as you cultivate diligently, you will definitely become a Heaven Saint Master in the future. Jianchen smiled. The Princess Glan did indeed have this talent. She already possessed the strength of a Saint Master. The two of them quickly landed on the ground and sat down in a pavilion in the garden. However, the way the Princess Glan looked at Jianchen had changed quite a bit. Looking at the beautiful Princess Glan, Jianchen hesitated for a moment before saying, "Princess, Xianxia Shoten, you should just call me you. That's what my father and Uncle Yiming call me." As soon as Jianchen opened his mouth, he was interrupted by the Princess Glan. After saying that, the Princess Glan's face turned slightly red. "All right then." Jianchen did not act pretentiously and said, "You Princess, there is something that I think I should discuss with you." The Princess Glan did not say anything. Her bright eyes blinked as she looked at Jianchen. Jianchen continued, "You Princess, the marriage between the two of us was decided by our parents without our consent. Actually, I am very opposed to this kind of marriage. In the past, it was because I was not strong enough and did not have the ability to change anything, so I could only silently accept it. However, it's different now. I have enough power now." Jianchen stopped there. Although he did not explain, the extremely intelligent Yu understood what Jianchen meant. The Princess Glan fell silent as she stared blankly at the chess record on the stone table. After a while, she said, "Xianxia Shoten, do you want to cancel the marriage between us?" "You Princess, I believe that you are also very opposed to this kind of marriage. If you agree, I can immediately ask His Majesty to cancel this marriage. I know why your father is doing this, but you can rest assured that as a citizen of the Kingdom of Jessen, this is already my home. I will do my best to protect the Kingdom of Jessen," Jianchen said calmly. Back then he was very opposed to this marriage. However, he did not have enough power back then and could not change anything. However, everything was different now. Chapter 457. Back in Kargath Academy, when she heard that her father had already arranged a marriage for her, the Glan Princess was extremely opposed to the marriage that was arranged without her consent. She had even taken the initiative to ask her father to cancel the marriage several times, but she had returned empty-handed every time. However, after all these years of growth, Princess Glan had gradually come to understand that the Jessen Kingdom was still a developing kingdom. Although she was the princess of a kingdom and had a delicate status, there were many things that were beyond her control. Take marriage as an example. When it came to matters that concerned her lifelong happiness, it was difficult for her to have a choice. In this life, she was destined to be a sacrifice for the kingdom's peace and prosperity. This caused her heart to gradually mature, and she slowly accepted such things. The Glan Princess was extremely opposed to the marriage that the king had arranged for her. However, ever since she heard about Jianchen's achievements and saw Jianchen, the Glan Princess' heart gradually changed. She gradually accepted Jianchen. After all, Jianchen was so handsome and talented. He was already a Heaven Saint Master at the age of 21. His future was limitless. He also had another identity as the imperial tutor of the Qin Empire. He was neither arrogant nor hot-tempered, and he was amiable and respectful. Being enveloped by so many halos of glory, Jianxin's image in the Glan Princess' heart became extremely great. He could be said to be the killer of all the girls in the world, the prince charming in their hearts. Previously, the Glan Princess was secretly delighted about the marriage because Jianxin was so outstanding. It would be difficult to find a second person like Jianxin in the entire world. Moreover, his special identity and great strength were extremely important to the Glan Kingdom. She felt a little excited that her future husband was such an outstanding person. However, at this moment, Jianxin actually took the initiative to cancel the engagement. This made the Princess of Glan feel very disappointed. Although the Princess of Glan did not develop feelings for Jianxin in this short period of time, Jianxin's excellence had already moved her heart. For a moment, both of them were silent. Neither of them spoke. After a long while, the Princess of Glan finally broke the strange silence and said, "Xianxia, can you tell me why you want to dissolve this marriage? Could it be that you already have someone in your heart?" Jianxin shook his head and said, "Princess Glan, I'm sure you know what happened to me back then. I left Changyang Prefecture alone and wandered around for a few years. Although I was lucky enough to survive in the end, I provoked many enemies outside. Some of them were very powerful, and even I can't fight against them now. Moreover, perhaps in the near future, something even more serious will happen. Even I can't predict the outcome of this matter. Right now, I only want to focus on increasing my strength so that I can deal with the possible calamity in the future. I don't want to waste time on relationships." After hearing Jianxin's words, the Princess of Glan gently sighed in relief. She looked at Jianxin's resolute and handsome face with a smile and said gently, "Xianxia, it's no wonder you were able to reach your current realm in just a few years. It seems that you've been working very hard on your cultivation. You must have suffered a lot over the years." When Jianxin heard about the suffering outside, he sighed in his heart. He had indeed worked very hard in the past few years and had paid a lot. Not only had he been on the brink of death time and time again, there was even one time where he had truly died. It was not a coincidence that he was able to achieve what he had today. "Princess, I hope you can understand. Right now, I don't want to talk about relationships. I need to increase my strength as quickly as possible to deal with the future." Jianxin spoke again, but in his heart he thought of the Shi family and the Jetta family. These two families had saint kings in their ranks, which was what Jianxin was most afraid of. There was also the Qiangan Kingdom, Yangji Zone, and the guardian family mentioned by the old headmaster who escaped. This made Jianxin a little worried. Could it be another powerful force that was difficult to deal with? However, from the old headmaster's words, Jianxin was able to deduce that the guardian family's strength was probably beyond his imagination. Lastly, there was the matter of the white tiger. Jianxin had always kept Uncle Xiu's warning in mind. He needed to increase the white tiger's strength as quickly as possible. Perhaps the white tiger's matter would also cause a storm. The Gilligan family and the white tiger had already become enemies. With the white tiger's status as a winged tiger, the Gilligan family would definitely not allow it to grow. This was because it would be a disaster for the Gilligan family. Now, Jianxin was worried that the king of the Gilligan family would ignore the agreement with the humans and leave the Cross Mountains to personally hunt down the white tiger. This was a terrifying existence that could easily kill a saint king. Jianxin did not dare to imagine if he would be able to escape from the Gilligan family. After a moment of hesitation, the princess said, "Xianxia, my father personally decided on this marriage back then. Now that you want my father to cancel it, have you considered the dignity of the imperial family?" Seeing how Jianxin remained silent, the princess hesitated for a while before finally coming up with an idea. After a moment of hesitation, she still said, "How about this? The two of us can go to father and tell him to postpone the marriage indefinitely. If that's the case, Jianxin became rather troubled. If he did that, he would be wasting the princess' youth. Right now, he only wanted to increase his strength so that he could deal with the future. He had not considered his marriage at all. Princess Glan sighed softly. She felt a little helpless when she made such a decision. If it were before, she definitely would have agreed without any hesitation if Jianxin proposed to cancel the marriage, but now, Princess Glan, I never thought I'd see you here. What a coincidence. Suddenly, laughter rang out from nearby. A young man walked over with a smile on his face. He seemed to be around the same age as Jianchen and was also extremely handsome. However, he seemed rather scholarly, which was very different from Jianchen's resolute face. 2 guards followed behind the young man. They seemed to be in their 50s, and their faces were composed while their gazes were sharp. He's the second prince of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom, the princess whispered to Jianchen. Jianchen nodded slightly. His gaze only casually glanced at the second prince of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom before he lost interest. He began to admire the colorful sea of flowers around him. The second prince of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom was wearing a luxurious robe and holding a folding fan in his hand. He walked over elegantly from afar and sat down on the stone bench without waiting for the host's greeting. He did not even look at Jianchen. With a bright smile on his face, he said to the princess, I never thought that I would meet the princess of the Glan Kingdom just by strolling around. It seems that this prince and the princess of the Glan Kingdom are really fated. After the princess of the Glan Kingdom and the second prince of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom exchanged some pleasantries, the second prince finally noticed Jianchen. He smiled and said, If I'm not wrong, this must be the 4th young master of the Changyang Prefecture, Changyang Shoten. Although the second prince had a smile on his face, his expression was arrogant and his tone was filled with unconcealable arrogance. He looked at Jianchen with a hint of disdain. That's right, it's me. Jianchen said expressionlessly. The second prince smiled and turned to look at the princess of the Glan Kingdom. He said, Princess, I would like to speak with young Master Changyang Shoten alone. The princess of the Glan Kingdom hesitated for a moment before standing up from the stone bench. She said, Then I won't disturb the 2 of you. With that, she walked out of the pavilion and walked through the sea of flowers alone. After the princess of the Glan Kingdom left, the smile on the second prince's face disappeared. He looked at Jianchen with a threatening gaze and said in a deep voice, Changyang Shoten, this prince knows that you are already engaged to the princess of the Glan Kingdom. However, the princess of the Glan Kingdom is someone that this prince has taken a fancy to. Anyone who dares to have any ideas about the princess of the Glan Kingdom is going against this prince. Therefore, this prince hopes that you can ask His Majesty to cancel this engagement. Jianchen looked at the second prince of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom with a mocking expression. He said, It's not up to you to interfere in my affairs. Furthermore, you don't have the right to interfere. Your Highness, if there's nothing else, please leave. The second prince's expression changed. He looked at Jianchen with a cold gaze and his tone became cold. He said, Changyang Shoten, do you know what you're saying? Do you really want to make an enemy of this prince? Do you want to bring disaster to Changyang Prefecture? It seems like you don't know the strength of my Heavenly Eagle Kingdom. A cold smile appeared on Jianchen's lips. Since the second prince was so rude, he couldn't be bothered to give him any face. He said disdainfully, Your Highness, what right do you have to be my enemy? Changyang Prefecture isn't something that you can provoke. As for the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom, do you believe that I can make your kingdom disappear overnight with just a word? How dare you? The second prince was enraged. He slapped the stone table in front of him into 2 halves. He looked at Jianchen with eyes full of killing intent. He shouted angrily, Changyang Shoten, who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth? Since you're seeking your own death, then this prince will fulfill your wish. Since you dare to insult my Heavenly Eagle Kingdom, no one can save you now. Men, take him down and bring him back to the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom to be dealt with by my imperial father. The 2 guards standing behind the second prince stepped forward with gloomy expressions. Their sharp gazes were filled with killing intent. Jianchen's words had caused their hearts to be filled with killing intent. The 2 of them each stretched out a hand to grab Jianchen's shoulder. They didn't put Jianchen in their eyes at all. Chapter 458. The 2 guards had never expected Jianchen to counterattack. Furthermore, the sword chi was extremely fast, not giving them any time to dodge. In the end, their outstretched hands were struck by the sword chi, and their palms were immediately pierced by the sword chi, causing blood to flow. The two middle-aged men's expressions changed at the same time. The intense pain from their palms caused them to involuntarily groan. They looked at their palms in shock, their faces filled with disbelief. Neither of them had thought that the fourth young master of Xianxia Prefecture would have such ability. Although they were extremely surprised, the two middle-aged men did not show the slightest fear. After suffering this loss, the two of them did not dare to be as careless as before. Powerful saint force surged from their palms, instantly condensing into two weapons. Without any hesitation, they stabbed at Xianxia. The moment the two guards took out their saint weapons, the second prince of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom turned pale with fright and quickly retreated. He was extremely clear on the strength of the two guards, but he had never thought that the fourth young master of Xianxia Prefecture would actually be able to force them to take out their saint weapons. This caused him to feel extremely shocked. Xianxia sat on the stone bench as if he had entered a meditative state. His eyes were filled with disdain as he looked at the guards who were attacking him once again. His hand lightly tapped twice, and two more sword chi shot out from his fingertips, colliding with the two incoming saint weapons. The sword chi dissipated upon contact, but the two middle-aged men's bodies trembled. They only felt an extremely powerful force from the saint weapons in their hands, causing their entire right arm to go numb. The right hand that held the saint weapons also drooped slightly, and they could not help but take a few steps back. They had already retreated out of the pavilion. The second prince's gaze swept past the shocked guards. His expression was uncertain. He had expected to clash with Xianxia on this trip, but the result was the exact opposite of what he had expected. The two Earth Saint Master Guards he had brought were actually unable to do anything to him. The sound of fighting attracted the attention of Princess Glan, who was admiring the flowers not far away. She immediately ran over from afar and looked at the stone table that had been smashed to smithereens. She asked, "What happened? Why did they suddenly start fighting?" Xianxia stood up from the stone bench and slowly walked to the edge of the pavilion with his hands behind his back. He coldly stared at the second prince and expressionlessly said, "Your Highness, you should understand the principle of a loose tongue leads to disaster. I hope you can watch your words. This world still does not belong to your Heavenly Eagle Kingdom." Hearing this, the second prince's face immediately became gloomy. He said in a deep voice, "A loose tongue leads to disaster. That makes a lot of sense. Xianxia Shoten, this prince will remember your words. The future is long, let's wait and see." After saying this, the second prince left with his two guards dejectedly. Looking at the second prince's departing figure, Xianxia faintly smiled. He really did not place the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom in his eyes. The Glan Princess looked at Xianxia's tall figure with a complicated expression. She gently walked to Xianxia's side and gently said, "Xianxia Shoten, he is a prince of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom after all. Moreover, this is the imperial palace of our kingdom of Xianxia. Don't make things too big, okay? Don't worry, I know my limits. Even if something really does happen, I will bear the consequences." Xianxia's tone was very calm. "That's not what I meant." The Glan Princess wanted to explain, but Xianxia interrupted her. "Princess Yu, let's go back." The second prince of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom was undoubtedly one of the people who received the most attention in the imperial palace. Not long after Xianxia and the Glan Princess left, the news of the second prince being humiliated in the garden had already spread to the ears of those with status in the imperial palace. His Majesty, who was chatting with Xiangyang Ba and his wife in the main hall, as well as the two princes, all received the news. In a splendidly decorated palace, 3 young men in their 20s were drinking and chatting merrily at a table filled with all sorts of delicacies. At this moment, a guard ran in from outside and whispered something in the ears of the 2 young men. Following this, a trace of surprise flashed in the eyes of the 2 young men. They waved their hands to signal the guard to leave, and their expressions became somewhat serious. "Your Highnesses, may I ask what has happened?" The young man sitting opposite the two asked curiously. "The guard just sent news that the 4th young master of the Xianxia Prefecture, Xianxia Shoten, has offended the second prince of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom. This is not going to be easy. The Heavenly Eagle Kingdom is not something that our kingdom of Xianxia can afford to offend." One of the princes said with some worry. What, Changyang Shoten? The young man who asked the question was slightly surprised, but soon a trace of joy appeared on his face. He asked, could it be that the fourth young master of the Changyang prefecture, Changyang Shoten, has returned? That's right, Changyang Shoten has also just returned. We also received the news not long ago. Looking at Brother Mingdong's appearance, could it be that you know Changyang Shoten? One of the princes asked curiously. Mingdong nodded slightly, saying, I didn't think that he would return so quickly and even come to the palace. Your Highnesses, I still have matters to attend to, so I'll take my leave first. After speaking, Mingdong hurriedly left, leaving the two princes of the kingdom of Jessan staring at each other, their faces full of shock and disbelief. Changyang Shoten actually knows Brother Mingdong? One of the princes muttered in a low voice, extremely surprised. The second prince of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom angrily returned to the palace where he was resting with his two guards. As soon as he entered the palace, he slammed his palm heavily on the table, immediately breaking the expensive wooden table in half. Changyang Shoten, this prince will make you regret this. This prince will return today's humiliation to you 1,000 times over. The second prince's eyes were filled with murderous intent. As a prince of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom, he had always been respected no matter where he went. He had never been humiliated like today. At this moment, Minister Che also returned. His complexion was not very good. Looking at the angry second prince, he could not help but feel curious, asking, Second prince, what happened? Why are you so angry? The people of Changyang Prefecture are too arrogant. Then, the second prince truthfully recounted what had happened in the garden. Minister Che's expression became rather serious after hearing this. He said, to be able to easily defeat two Earth Saint Masters in his 20s, his talent is truly terrifying. No wonder the king of the kingdom of Jessan insisted on a marriage alliance with Changyang Prefecture. It was all because of Changyang Shoten. The second prince turned his head and stared at Minister Che. He said, Minister Che, did your discussion with the king also fail? Minister Che nodded and said, yes, the king is determined to betroth Princess Grant to Changyang Shoten. Even if I brought up the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom, I could not sway him at all. But the king is right. If I were him, I would have done the same. I never thought that Changyang Shoten would have such strength. With such talent, given a few more days, his future achievements will be limitless. Who knows, he might even bring the kingdom of Jessan into a golden age. A strong killing intent flashed through the second prince's eyes. His voice gradually became cold. He said coldly, this is a threat to the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom. Once the kingdom of Jessan becomes strong, it will definitely threaten the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom. Changyang Shoten cannot be left alive. Minister Che nodded and said, that's right. Since Changyang Shoten has said such disgraceful words, we can use this as a pretext to make a fuss. Then I will bring some experts to take down Changyang Shoten. The second prince was about to take action. He could not wait any longer. Wait, Minister Che said, Your Highness, I have two plans to resolve this matter. Minister Che whispered into the second prince's ear. Xianxia and Princess Glan had already returned to the palace. The king and Changyang Ba were still chatting and laughing. My dear nephew, you've come at the right time. You are not young anymore. Let's choose an auspicious day to get you two married as soon as possible, the king said with a smile. It seemed that he was very eager to get his daughter married. Changyang Ba and Bai Yuntian were also smiling. They were on the king's side. Hearing this, Xianxia hesitated slightly and said, Your Highness, I have many things to deal with during this period of time. It is not the time to talk about love. Let's postpone this marriage for now. The king frowned. He exchanged glances with Changyang Ba and his wife. He seemed to be in a difficult position. Father, I also agree to postpone this marriage. Princess Glan suddenly said. Her face was very calm. It was impossible to tell if she was happy, angry, or sad. Seeing that Xianxia and Princess Glan both agreed to postpone the marriage, the king had no other choice. He sighed and said, All right. Since the two of you want to postpone the marriage, Then let's postpone it for a while. The king's face was filled with unconcealable disappointment. The status of the fourth young master of Changyang Prefecture was no longer the same as before. The king could only follow his wishes. He did not dare to force him to do anything. Xianxia, why are you doing this? Bai Yuntian looked at Jianshan with some blame. Mother, I really have many things to do. I don't have the energy to talk about love. Jianshan's face was filled with bitterness. In the eyes of others, he was the imperial advisor of the Qin Empire and a powerful heaven saint master. However, only he knew how much pressure he was facing. The matter of the marriage being postponed indefinitely made the king and Changyang Ba and his wife feel a little disappointed. As parents, they naturally hoped that their children could get married sooner. Moreover, the other party was so outstanding. The crowd quickly dispersed. Jianshan and his parents were arranged to rest in a luxurious palace in the imperial palace. These palaces were specially used to entertain important guests. Welcome to Immortal Cultivation Audiobooks, your gateway to the mystical world of Xianxia. Dive into legendary tales of martial arts, spiritual growth, and immortal ascension. Here, we bring you full-length English audiobooks of the best Wuxia and Xianxia stories, from young prodigies to ancient sect wars. Perfect for fans of Against the Gods, Martial World, and tales of demons and gods.